How often do you ask yourself, what are my limits? It's a question that dances in our minds, isn't it? But what if I told you that these so-called limits are just figments of our imagination, mere mirages in the desert of potential? You see, every time we set a boundary for ourselves, we're merely marking a spot on a map that is infinitely vast. We're saying, this is as far as I can go, but who's to say you can't go further? Who's to say that there isn't more uncharted territory beyond that point? We often mistake our comfort zones as the end of the road, when in reality, they are just rest stops along the journey of self-discovery. Your capabilities are far more extensive than you perceive them to be. So let's challenge this notion of limits. Imagine for a moment a world where you are not confined by your perceived limits. Once upon a time, there was a man named John. Now, John wasn't extraordinary by any means. He was just an ordinary man with an extraordinary will. As a child, a severe injury had left him with a limp, and he was told he could never run. But John, he was a dreamer. He dreamt of running, of feeling the wind against his face, of crossing finish lines. Everyone around him said it was impossible. Doctors, friends, family, they all echoed the same sentiment. John, you can't run. But John, he believed otherwise. He believed he could run, and so he set out to prove them wrong. For years, John trained. He pushed his boundaries, he fell, he got up, and he kept going. He toiled under the sun and in the rain, his determination unwavering. He faced setbacks, of course, but he didn't let them deter him. Instead, he used them as stepping stones, as motivation to push harder, to strive further. And then one day, John ran a marathon. He crossed that finish line, his breath ragged, his body exhausted, but his spirit soaring. He had done the impossible, he had broken his limit. John's story shows us that our limits are often just in our minds, because when we believe in ourselves, when we push beyond what we think is possible, we can achieve the extraordinary. John pushed his limits. Why can't you? You see, we all have the capacity to achieve greatness, to break through our own barriers. Just like John, who soared past his own perceived limits and reached heights he never thought possible. So let's take a page from his book. Let's dare to dream bigger, to reach higher, challenge your limits, push your boundaries, and see how far you can go. The only thing stopping you is you.